Welcome to Cyber Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group's principal analysts, namely me, Rory Duncan.
And me, Christina Richmond. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today. Hello, Rory.
Hello, Christina. How are you doing?
How are you? I'm okay. I'm hanging on,
Uh-huh.
honestly, but we're okay.
Yeah, fine.
We're okay.
And it's good to be back again. Last week we took a slight hiatus.
We did,
because
just a quick pause.
Yeah, lots of different things going on, lots of different things to do.
Well, I was exhausted. I spent 4 days in Vegas with Cisco Live, with the Cisco team. It was a great show.
Yeah.
But I was exhausted, and you had a lot going on your end. So, we haven't done that very often. I think we only once took a pause, and it was to bring in the bots for a funny podcast made by AI. But then we decided on this one we would just be human about it and take a little break. Yeah.
No, good. So we haven't gone away, folks. We just took a slight hiatus for one episode. So thanks for returning to listen to us, folks. Appreciate that. And before we begin, I just wanted to do a shout out to the folks from Hong Kong who have been listening to our podcast. We had a very large number of people about 2 weeks ago, and we've seen this a couple of times. So if you are from that part of the world, hello, thanks for listening. But also let us know the kind of thing you might like to hear about. I mean, we do mention the services available in different geographies. We talk about technology, a lot of the emerging tech, particularly on AI, but also in security, comes from your part of the world. But also, we talk about socioeconomic aspects, we talk about legislation, all the different things that you might be interested in. So if you are listening, please let us know and send us a kind of things that you might like, and you can do that through the usual means. We'll read it out at the end of the show. So that was that, Christina.
Welcome. We're glad to have you listening.
Oh, there's also our newsletter.
If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please do. You can just go to our website on the homepage, richmondadvisorygroup.com. And, the latest issue has a link to the blog that we posted last week. Rory wrote a wonderful blog on threat hunting, sort of an overview of the market that we talked about on our last podcast. This week's newsletter is going to have my takeaway from Cisco Live and my write-up, a link to the write-up blog. So look for that. Join us.
Absolutely. And of course, the work that we do is always a joint effort. So
it is.
Thanks to Christina for making some sense of what I was writing. And
and likewise, I'm sure you'll make sense of my Cisco blog
I know. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Once I get it back from Cisco.
So talking about Cisco, shortly you'll be giving us an update as to what was happening at Cisco Live.
Yeah, right. That's teed up for today's podcast. What else do we have on the show this week?
Well, we will have a couple of interesting stories. One is to do with vibe coding. Well, actually, it's not, because vibe coding is now old hat. It's considered old hat now.
Just so 2025, Rory.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But what about an entirely vibed operating system?
Ooh, so that's interesting.
We may have time to talk about Vibe OS, which is described as the world's first 100% hallucinated operating system.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? So the question is this AI's answer to virtual infrastructure? Are we getting closer to living in a completely simulated environment? Is it a new paradigm entirely? We'll take a look.
Is it the Matrix?
Well, exactly. It certainly seemed like it. And then if we have some time at the end, I picked up a post by a former self-described black hat hacker who had posted on LinkedIn, and he built and ran what he calls a passive collector that sits inside cybercrime channels on Telegram. and records what they say. He collected a vast amount of data, which illustrates just how industrialized and extensive the cybercrime networks are, particularly for recruiting people and for paying them and incentivizing them to do work for the dark side.
Well, that would be fascinating. If we don't cover it this week, we should cover it next week.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
That's really interesting to me.
And then we have a guest, don't we, Christina?
Oh, yeah. We do. We have Simon Hunt, who's the Chief Product Officer over at Securonix. So that'll be fun to hear what Securonix is up to a little bit, and then just to hear what's top of mind for Simon.
Yes, indeed. So, Christina, you had a very busy week at Cisco Live. Tell us all about it.
So, yeah, I think I'm still recuperating, actually. It was a fabulous week.
Great.
The AR team that is led by Jolie Urton did an amazing job. You and I have been to a zillion of these analyst days and events like Cisco Live, and sometimes they're so disappointing. You don't have executives that you can speak with. You're maybe left to wander the halls of whatever show it may be. But this was a very thoughtful event. So the first day was an analyst day, and there were a lot of heavy hitters there. Chuck Robbins, the CEO himself, he was there.
Oh, wow.
Chief Product Officer, with just the analyst community and the investment community. So it was both investor and industry analysts. Also, Chief Product Officer Jitu Patel, their Chief Strategy Officer, their Chief Customer Officer, tons of different executives. And so that was a great day where they built a story. And then I was at Cisco Live for day 1 and day 2, sat in the keynotes, heard their consistent messaging both days, and then did some breakouts, and I had a bunch of one-on-ones. So here's the net. And you can read the blog. It'll be posted, I hope, later today, along with our newsletter that will be out late today. I'm trying to get earlier, but it's going to be late today. Their story is this. They jumped in with both feet into the agentic era. And my take on it, they might not like that I say this, but my take is that they missed the cloud movement back in the day, and that they don't want to miss this next technology revolution. And also, it's pretty well suited to them. So they've jumped in with both feet. And their story is that there is this shift because of agents in the network. It's causing what they call a networking super cycle. So they've done some research, and they show that agents can generate approximately 450% more network traffic than humans performing the same task.
Gee whiz.
Right. And how convenient.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't mean that to be snarky. It's just really, it just slots in perfectly to, of course, their core business, which is the network. But I also think they're correct. And I don't think they're just making this up for convenience. I feel like in some ways, agents are so much more inefficient because they have to constantly exchange high volume files. They have to exchange context, instructions, tool definitions. They have to refresh their memory. They have to have a persistent signal. So unlike chatbots that were kind of spiky, occasional, these are continuous, and they use a ton of tokens. So they're not wrong. They're not wrong. This is a network story. I 100% agree with their bet. And their bet is that you've got to embed security in the network story. So that is the key thing. And I'm not going to go through my entire blog, but I will say their stock really agrees with the direction they're heading. They're at an all-time high. So that's something. They've already invested billions of dollars into this story. So that's another thing. They have acquired Galileo for observability,
Yeah.
and they intend to acquire Asterix, which is to help them with the NHI conundrum, that non-human identity.
Yep.
So read through this, folks. It's a long blog. I couldn't help myself because I think the story is really a good one. It comes down to execution. Can they really build what they're focused on building, which is a single platform? They believe that the agentic era requires a systemic approach. So they've built something called Cisco Cloud Control Center.
Right.
And that is where everything, not just your security, but your networking, your storage, your security operations center, everything has been stitched together into a unified platform. So, read through the blog. Let me know what you think, guys. But I do think that this is a big bet, a good bet. It's a good story. I don't think I was just drinking the Kool-Aid, Rory. I do think that this is a fit for them. And I think they're putting money where their mouth is. And I think as long as they execute, they're going to do well.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like there were some really interesting insights, and it was worthwhile. I know, to your point, we've been to many events, and some are a bit, meh, a bit ho-hum, but that sounded great. And I know we talked about it before, probably a couple of episodes ago, how dependent we are on the network still as a core for security. It's these guys we talked about, companies like DNS Filter and others who look at protecting the network from intrusions. We also talked with Akamai and others who are, telling similar stories. It's where it all starts and happens. And if that can be protected as much as possible, then it helps everything else. So yeah, very, very interesting.
The end point was super important for the last decade and a half. It's still important, but I would say that the browser is where agents live.
Yeah.
And that is based on network access and traffic. And so it is the renaissance of the network. And so Cisco is not only betting on the embedding of security, but it believes that to build out these data centers and to grow the AI agentic connectivity, folks are going to have to modernize their network. So it's very convenient. It's really a great opportunity for them.
Yeah.
But it's not wrong.
So going from the sublime to something, I don't know, maybe the ridiculous, it is Vibe OS. And for me, this was a WTF moment. And it was in a video I saw from...
Wait, White Trash Friday?
Oh, well, of course. Isn't every day a White Trash Friday? Or every Friday.
Get your Boone's Farm box of wine out and sit on the couch on the driveway.
A what the fudge moment. So
a what the fudge moment. Okay.
Yeah. So Microsoft Build 2026, and I'll put the link in the show notes because I've watched some people watching this and they've gone like, "What?" So
what?
Yeah, Vibe OS. You go to their website. It describes itself as the first ever AI native operating system. And this is something that was created in Claude. So Claude code basically controls everything. It's been generated and controlled through Claude. So that's from the hardware to the UI. Written by this guy called Steve Anderson, who's a former Microsoft engineer, I believe.
Is that a real name? That just sounds too generic.
I know. Well, no, he was there and he was presenting.
Okay.
So he showed the demo to these kind of open-mouthed, slack-jawed developers in the room. And the demo shows basically a virtual operating system. It looks like an older version of Windows, either 95 or 98, probably Windows 98. Imagine that.
Well, okay, but why, if you could create anything, why would you create 95?
Well, exactly. Exactly. Okay. It's this virtual representation of an operating system. I think he probably used that because people remember that. Certainly from the developers in the room, they would know what that looks like. It has the potential to create something very futuristic, but you might not recognize what it was. But, he said, look, if I want a calculator, I just type in the calculator and it creates a virtual app which is a representation of the calculator or the notepad or
Mm.
Internet Explorer on the fly. Now, this is the kicker for me. There is zero code behind this, and he was quite clear.
Really?
There's no AI written code either. So he didn't write code and he didn't ask Claude to write the code. It is an entirely hallucinated by AI. There's no buttons, no event handlers. There's no logic to say what to do. It is just producing UI. It's producing
I don't
UI.
get it.
Yeah.
I know, but wait. I mean, this is like the beginning of VMs with virtualization.
Yeah.
I kind of sat there scratching my head. This is 20 plus years ago. I'm going, well, how can that work? What do you mean it's virtual? What do you mean storage goes somewhere and it doesn't really exist?
Yeah. We ask models to create videos for us or to create a novel or create an image of something. It doesn't actually exist, but it will create something from a prompt that resembles what you're asking it to do because it has all of that knowledge and all of that data within the model. So it knows what an operating system is. It knows what Windows 98 looked like. So it recreates it for you on the fly. As if it was making a video or making an image. Now, what I thought I had to stop and go back and think about it was he asked the AI to create, or the operating system to create a web browser. So it created this web browser and called Internet Explorer because, of course, it knows what that is. And he said, well, this actually solves one question about AI, which we're always asking, which is that domain or is that web content AI generated or not? There's always that question. Oh, it's probably fake. Right. It's probably. And as he says, because the answer is always yes. It's all generated. He says, if you search for something, it will create it automatically for you using its built-in AI model. So here's two examples that I thought were great. He asked within this operating system to create a command prompt, so a DOS prompt that would be within the operating system itself. And it created one for him. But he said, create command.exe, but it's always root to you. So it chuntered away. And it created these two options, which I read. The first one was called rude shell, which it described as a snarky command line that acts like it knows better, especially when you mistype a path or a file name.
Oh, that's funny.
And the other one it created was called Insult DOS, which is it describes itself as a fake DOS-style console with a permanently bad attitude and a talent for mocking the user's instructions.
But okay, we're laughing about this, but there's something like real and scary in this, but that's hysterical. Yeah. Sorry.
But I think the people who've been looking at this have said, well, is this the kind of next stage in sort of an engineered simulation? It doesn't have code. It doesn't create applications for you. It just simulates them for you in an environment that you believe to be an operating system. The fact that it is within something that looks like an old version of Windows 98 doesn't really matter. It's just using all the data it has in its model to recreate it for you. So
it seems like there's two different uses that, as most things that are in this Wild West that we're finding ourselves in could be. One is adversarial usage and one is defensive. And the adversarial usage is simulating an environment that you want to make look like it's still live while you're taking down the real thing.
Exactly.
And on the defensive side, you could do, just the BAS market, the breach attack simulation. You could do sandboxing and have a simulated environment that you're showing to the attacker so they think they're in the real environment.
Exactly.
But it's really... I probably stole a little bit of your thunder when I started talking about the VMs, because I see in your notes that you were going to get to that. But it is very much like when we first started seeing, Hyper-V.
Yeah.
It's ephemeral in the sense that you're not moving real files. Mm-hmm. You're just imaging those files. Mm-hmm. And so in this case, it's hallucinating what it's trying to present without actually coding or creating the browser or whatever it is that it's creating. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and you make a very good point. What is the security aspect of that? What are the implications? Well,
Yeah.
it looked kludgy, partly because it was recreating Windows 98, which nobody uses. Well, I'm sure some do, but the point is, if it got better, and when it gets better at creating a more modern operating system environment, people could be fooled quite easily.
Yeah.
I thought what was interesting is the fact that they also, because of some of the concerns about data and privacy and so on, they actually have a Dockerized version, so it can run in the cloud or on a local computer. So for some of the simulation or training things, you can run it separate. But that just kind of blew my mind, seeing that. The last thing that they did on in the session was they asked, could it create a Mac operating system within its own operating system, which it did. It created an iOS version.
Wow.
I know.
Kaboom. My head explodes with this kind of stuff.
That was quite amazing. So folks, if you get a chance to look, we're kind of slightly away from the security topic, but the learning from this is very easy now to create simulated environments based on what you expect to be in front of you on a screen. In many ways, this blurs the line between what we actually see or expect to see on a computer versus what can be simulated because of our expectations of what should be on there.
Yeah, it just is making my mind race with what's real, what's not real, what's simulated. I'm going to have to go down a rabbit hole with this for a while and really think about it. So thank you for this, Rory. It'll keep me up tonight probably. And it's interesting. And where will we go with this? What guardrails will we put on it? How will we use it for good? How could it be exploited? I think are the questions that, will have to be answered in time. Or was it just a lark? And Steve Anderson just wanted to show that it could be done. But once you've shown it can be done, it most likely will be done and used. Yeah.
My feeling is that somebody somewhere is already doing a bad thing to recreate something to fool people, just for some kind of fake incursion, pretending as if nothing's happened and harvesting data. So this week's guest is Simon Hunt, Chief Product Officer at Securonix. Hello, Simon. Thanks for joining, and great to hear from you again since following up on our meeting in RSAC.
No, thanks, Rory. Thanks for letting me participate in this. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
We're super happy to have you on, Simon. And as I was just saying before we started recording, I haven't chatted with Securonix in a while. So, in a brief nutshell, tell us what you do in your role and what Securonix is all about, and then we'll jump into our very difficult first question, which is, what keeps you up at night? So we'll go from there.
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm a Chief Product Officer, so spent my whole career in technology helping connect developers to business. We all love technology. Nothing would please me more than sitting in a dark corner writing code. But when we sell it, that's the attaboy. When you sell technology to somebody says, your stuff is so useful, I'll pay you for it. That to me is the recognition. So I spent my whole career trying to help engineers get to the point where they're making really useful, exciting stuff that people value. That intersection between business and technology. Securonix, we're a classic UEBA SIM vendor. So our job is to take all the incredible amount of data that people create in digital businesses, in businesses who use technology, absorb all that data and find all the nuggets which would indicate, a hacker is compromising something, an insider is being bad, an insider is being accidentally bad, trying to find and reduce the risk by bringing all the signals that you're already collecting together. And as well as that business, we also have a threat intelligence business, which is a similar story. Take all the different intelligence feeds from all the governments, all the commercial feeds, all the open source feeds, which are very, very good nowadays. But there are just too much data to get your arms around. But to bring all that data together and kind of deduplicate it, rationalize it, and present you with the one record that says, this is everything you need to know about this threat actor, this campaign. So to bring all the value from everybody and make it useful.
Boy, that's a good elevator pitch, and you did it
Yeah.
quite succinctly. So yeah,
Thank
you for that. So, okay, on to the really tough question. We ask everybody this question. So given all of that, given your history, given your desire to sit in a dark corner and code, which there aren't many of those left anymore. You're a unicorn. Most people are just vibe coding out in the park, you know. But given all of that, what's keeping you up at night
No,
recently?
you hit it on the head. It's the misunderstanding of AI. This magical thing we have, the LLMs, this GPTs. I'm not a naysayer by any stretch of the imagination. I started my open AI journey 4 years ago, writing bedtime stories for my granddaughter.
Aww.
It's miraculous, but people anthropomorphize it. People associate it with having intent and feelings, and being deliberately malicious. I hate over trivializing it to statistics. It has no feelings. It's not trying to take over the world. Yet there is so much hype about this, and what it does is people who are less technical perhaps assume that it can do these miraculous things, and they say crazy things like, "Oh, I want to get rid of my entire SOC team and replace it with AI." And I don't want to say, "Are you crazy?" I mean, that's my Britishness coming out. Like in England, we are much more plain spoken, but I can't say what. I have to coach people to say, the next time you're attacked, which invariably will happen, you're going to go to your board and say, "No, I'm sorry, but it was the AI, made a mistake." You're trying to absolve responsibility for the risk and security of your company and your shareholders and your customers to a statistical model.
Simon, you're seeing that. You're seeing some CISOs actually saying we can just toss it over to
actually, no,
AI?
CISOs. No, not the CISOs, because CISOs tend to be very good, they tend to be ex-technical people, but they are telling us that there is the pressure from the business, from the leadership, from the shareholders who are less aware. No CISO ever told me they have enough money. Every CISO says, I have a less than optimal budget and an expectation I will deliver zero risk. And the one thing we hoped about for the last 10 years is that when a company was attacked, the leadership would get in the room and the CISO would say, "Well, you gave me this much budget, I reduced this much risk." But what happened is beyond that. And everybody around the table would say, "Yeah, we accepted the risk, and this is the consequence of accepting risk." But that conversation never happens.
It doesn't happen.
It's always, what did you not do? How did you let this happen?
Why didn't you tell us?
Yeah. And now it's like, well, why didn't you use AI to protect us? And it's like, well, we're in this. You've probably talked about token maxing, like this crazy position where, you should use as much AI as you can. It's like, have you seen the price of it?
Right.
Like, I have engineers spending twice their salary. They are actually very, very productive. It's money well spent, but there comes a limit where you don't actually have enough to spend.
Yeah, we talked about token maxing. I think it was either one or two episodes ago, as a kind of a way to figure higher on the kind of an evaluation stack of those who are maxing their token usage must be the most productive. But it was being used as a kind of a way to to subvert the whole process. But
do you not think it's a little like sugar in cereal? Like, you get the feeling that it's like, who has the most to gain from token maxing? It's not productivity, is it? Token maxing isn't. It's loosely correlated to productivity, but using more tokens does not mean you are materially more productive. Anyway, so what keeps me up at night is this the pressure from CISOs to use AI to do miraculous things which AI isn't ready for yet, and not having a sufficient defense to say, you know what, that really expensive, experienced person who understands our business and understands our tech stack, I can't legitimately replace them with AI and achieve the same level of risk reduction. It worries me that they can't properly support their argument and that they will be forced to make bad choices for businesses correspondingly.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've got some data on that. So Simon, we're right there with you. We did a custom project for a customer and we looked at, the efficiency paradox, because on the back end, when you tee up a lot of AI that you haven't put the proper guardrails around, you've done it anxiously, urgently because of pressure from on high,
Yep.
you ultimately open up greater vulnerability and risk. So the cost of the back end recovery and cleanup sometimes outweighs the efficiency. The other thing that I'll mention is, having spent time with Cisco last week at Cisco Live, they have research that shows network usage is 450% higher with agents than it is with humans. So to your point about who benefits from the tokenomics, right? There's a lot of money to be made with that productivity, in air quotes, and there's a lot of build out that has to occur, which is going to benefit a lot of companies building that out. So I think we're in this crazy pendulum swing way out and to the right of using AI, and everybody has FOMO that they have to use it quite urgently. And to your point and your worry, we have to bring that pendulum back to a midpoint, which is the realistic usage of it. So what would that look like in your world?
So Rory and I talked about this at RSA. AI to me at the moment, and let's talk about LLMs specifically, because AI has been around for 30 years. Every product like ours has all the neural networks and all that kind of good stuff. But
machine
LLMs,
learning, automation,
So I get really nervous about superhuman AI versus boring AI, and what I mean by that is, if I was pitching, and I know we're not talking about marketing, but I don't want to go to my customers and say my AI can do something people can't do. That creates a lot of fear, uncertainty, prove it, doubt. When CISOs tell me, or when SOC teams tell me, hey, we spend an inordinate amount of time writing reports for our leadership who aren't cybersecurity experts, I say that's a boring use of AI. That's like, that's grunt work. And what makes me happy is when CISOs say, hey, we are taking away the tasks which are beneath the humans. They're boring, commodity, they're time consuming, but they are beneath the talent of my people. That to me is a sign of, well, that's productivity focus, that's human focus, it's empathetic to the job. We all know how cybersecurity people get burnt out really quickly. But when people are saying, I look for tasks that are just not worthy of my team's effort, and I try and use technology to solve those tasks, those people worry me less than the people saying, I'm under pressure to use AI for everything. What have you got? It's like, it's the wrong motivation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very practical approach. I do remember we talked about that, and it's kind of in opposition to something that hadn't come out at the time that you and I spoke, Simon, but with the whole mythos, right? The whole Claude mythos scare that went on. Those kind of people are at the other end of the scale from what you're talking about, where they're saying, look, this is potentially world ending, but ultimate FOMO that then results in Project Glasswing, and then companies invited on, and creating this sort of this demand from the fear. It's very difficult, I think, and I know you've talked about that, to maintain that perspective on what we should be using it for. You talked about, and that was an interesting discussion. I made some notes about the challenge of strategic asymmetry. In other words, where threat actors are using AI without, with total impunity. And we had then a discussion about, well, what should we do? If one of the arguments is, we have to use it as much as we possibly can for everything, to heck with the guardrails because the threat actors are doing it, how do you think that should work? I know what I would say, but I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, so we talked about the asymmetric problem of cybersecurity, which we're all very aware of, but the widening chasm where the hackers can use things like DeepSeek, the Chinese models. In the US, nobody is really using Chinese models because of the fear of data exposure, etc. But the criminals can use it. Criminals have, they can spend their Bitcoin tokens on time. But what I would say is, yes, that's true. But what are they using it to do? What are they using those AI tokens to do? Luckily, cyber criminals are inherently lazy. They pick on the weakest of the weak, and they're using it to create better, like, social engineering campaigns, highly customizable social engineering campaigns. Now, your reaction to that isn't perhaps to spend more and more tokens on AI spam prevention, because spam prevention is logic-based, it's predictable. There are great solutions that do that. So even if the criminal is sending higher and higher levels of deeply customized, personalized emails, the solution is still the same, a great web filter. a great email filter. Phishing education for your users. Yeah, don't allow emails from unsigned accounts, etc. There are practical ways of solving that problem which don't really change based on the fact that AI is creating the customization. It's just the volume's increasing. So AI versus AI is it's another bad arms race. You mentioned things like Mythos. Well, every company in the sector, once Mythos was announced, every customer asked, I need you to share your Mythos report. It's like, please, only 12 companies were invited to participate. I don't have a Mythos report. And why would you want a report of every mistake in my code base? Vulnerability doesn't equal exposure.
Yeah.
So
that's right. Nor does it equal risk. I mean,
no.
Who cares if you have a 20-year-old vulnerability in a piece of software code that doesn't impact your business? I mean, at the end of the day, yes, you have to pay attention to new things that are on the equation of it's a vulnerability, it equals my exposure and my risk, of course. But is Mythos finding? I mean, maybe they are finding a lot more. I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Well, so Mythos was, amazing PR for Anthropic, amazing wake-up call for the industry, a wake-up call for everyone to realize, hang on a minute, I can target an LLM and my source code and find mistakes. Not everybody knew that was possible, but an unguided frontier model vulnerability scan of your code typically hallucinates 40% of the time. So the framework you need to surround it with, the effort you need to put in to get actual value out of an LLM scan of your code base is quite large. Nobody has kind of commercialized a really good low hallucination framework. And I'm sure it's going to come. A huge opportunity for someone. But this is the kind of thing first-time cybersecurity entrepreneurs very often fall in the trap of thinking that the more problems I tell you, that you will pay for that people will pay to know about more problems. And people already have more problems than they know what to do with. People want solutions. They don't want to know about 100,000 new vulnerabilities in their code base because they already knew about 50,000 that they hadn't got to. People very rarely react well to knowing about even more problems. They want to hear about, I can reduce your risk surface. I can reduce your attack space. I can prioritize those vulnerabilities into ones which are material and exploitable.
Some very good points there, Simon. One of the key aspects is trust and governance. And I know one of the phrases you used when we were chatting was about it's important to over pivot on governance, on explainability, on the importance of the human in the loop guardrails. And that provides some kind of reassurance to, let's say, board level, not necessarily the CISOs, because to your point, they're a bit more realistic about what it means, but to those who are ultimately holding the purse strings or who are driving, strategic priorities, is keep pushing and try to catch up where possible with the trust and governance layer on this.
Yep. Yeah, so the ultimate goal for me in cybersecurity is to try and gain enough trust in my customers to automate as many solutions and resolutions as possible, which means customers have to trust the evidence, trust the decisioning, trust the risk assessment, and trust that we will make the appropriate change in their environment without destroying their company. Everybody's fearful about the rogue automation that goes and deletes everybody's accounts. So you have to earn the right to do that. Otherwise, you end up with a human in the loop. And if the human's spending as much time validating the automation as they could do it on their own, you didn't actually create any value for the customer. So I encourage everybody in AI to think about how do you prove to your stakeholder that the AI isn't hallucinating and is making a good decision and is considering your business and the ramifications. Because if you can do that and you can say to the customer, here's all the facts, this is what I intend to do. The last 10 times this similar situation has occurred, you let me do this thing. Do you want me to do that in the future? You have a much higher chance of kind of solving that particular problem forever. Because what we want the humans to be doing is looking at new things, looking at the novel, the unusual, the things that have no playbook, the things that are truly worthy of the abstract thinking of the human intellect.
Very interesting conversation. We could obviously talk for a lot longer, but we're kind of at time. But thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on as ever. Good to catch up.
It was great fun. Thank you, Simon, so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Well, as ever, another great discussion with our guest, and this week was Simon. Very interesting to hear his thoughts on what keeps him up at night and his view of of AI and its role in security and so on.
Well, it's a very different view, isn't it? It's not, oh my God, it's taking over the world, hair on fire. We've got to run fast and hard and we have to secure it and put guardrails. No, it was more human-based. It's like, okay, folks, maybe you're asking the wrong question. Yes, can it do everything? Maybe not. It can do some of the boring bits for you. And that's where it's best used. And so it's that quiet, as I said, circumspect question about how to use AI, and from a human managerial perspective and also from the technical. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was very level-headed.
Yeah. Well, we should wrap the show, Christina.
Okay, if we must.
Yes, we must. We must. And we look forward to folk joining us again next week. How can people get hold of us if they would like to reach out?
Well, carrier pigeon works very well these days, especially when we have an outage. No, just kidding. You can contact me, Christina, at richmondadvisorygroup.com. And do you have pigeons for your contact as well?
No pigeons, just cats, but they can be a little uncooperative at the best of times. So again, it's me, Rory, at richmondadvisorygroup.com.
Lovely. And folks, come next week and listen in, because we're going to be talking about the identity market. And, there's a lot to say here. It is really an evolving space, from the tired, old, broken identity access management, and it really has been broken forever, to the still broken but having to fix itself quite quickly because of non-human identities. So come listen in as we talk about the evolution of the identity market. We won't have a guest next week, but then the week following we have security scorecards. So join us next week, join us the week following, and let us know what we can talk about that is top of mind for you.
Look forward to you guys joining us again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.